If you're an educator jumping into the world of online education, I'm bringing you 8 great tips to help you up your game when it comes to teaching your students online. And bonus, I actually teach live streaming education for a living, which means I help entrepreneurs to build profitable businesses through their smart social media marketing, and I'm a former elementary education teacher. So the first thing you need to know is when you're teaching online, your computer needs to be at eye level, which means it can't be sitting on your desk shooting up your nose or too high, maybe shooting down your shirt. You want to make sure that it is straight on to eye level. So the thing you need to do is prop your computer up, and usually I recommend doing this with a stack of books, because then you can add in books or take away books as needed to get it to the right height level. And remember, you're making the camera on your computer, not the keyboard, right at eye level so that it is straight on and it doesn't warp anything in your screen, to give your students the best viewpoint of you as you are teaching. Now, the next thing I want you to remember is if you have the ability to put words on your screen, please do. This really helps with education. This helps me when I'm educating my students. And if you have the ability to put those words on screen, fantastic. Do that. Create yourself a script. Make sure that you are doing this so that people can see what you're talking about as you're discussing it. And if you have the ability to pull up comments as well, you can totally and should totally do that so that everybody can see what you're talking about and what you're addressing at the same time. Now, I do have a video on this. There's actually a lot of really great resources down in the description bar below, so hit that up and make sure that you are checking that out, because this is going to help what you're doing as you are continuing to educate online. But make sure you have those words on screen if at all possible. If you cannot put words on the screen, I do recommend that you get a piece of paper, not a dry erase board, because those are going to be really shiny and it's going to reflect any of the light in your room, and it's going to make it hard for people to see, and especially when you erase it, it is going to smear. So get a piece of paper. Cardstock is probably better, or hold up a computer piece of paper with a couple behind it so that it's not see-through. Then take a marker, not a pen, not a pencil, but a marker so that it's thick and people can easily see it, and then hold up whatever you need to on your screen. If you're planning in advance, or if it's not something you have to write out as you go ahead and type that up and then just print it out from your computer so that people can clearly read it and don't have to struggle to read your handwriting if you have maybe not the best reception and not the best service when you are live streaming and you are maybe a little pixelated for them. Make this as easy as possible and get those up on screen. Now, another thing that you can do to get words on screen, if you have the ability to insert pre-recorded video, you can create slideshows. You can create things where you're holding things up so that it's nice and clear. And if you have the ability to then insert that into your educational time, and bonus tip with that, if you are using some pre-recorded segments in your lessons, you can then be in the comments moderating what questions people are asking, what people are saying, so that you know when you jump back onto the live stream how to address what they're struggling with or what you need to clarify as you go. Now, to avoid feedback issues, I do recommend that you are wearing earbuds with a microphone. This is going to help not only for you to be heard, but to make sure that you're not picking up the noise from your students as you're listening to them speak to you, or other things that are going on, especially if students have unmuted themselves and you can hear the ambient noise from their house. So keep your earbuds in. If you are teaching for a long time, I do recommend putting one earbud in, leaving the other earbud out. This will help with the fatigue that you start to feel while you're wearing those earbuds, and you can then swap them out as needed so that you give yourself a break and can still hear what's going on in your own space of work to make sure everything is good and the way that it needs to be. Now, I do recommend that you have a script as you jump into your live streams. I recommend to all of my students to know what you're going to say. If you have the ability to use a program like BeLive, you can actually put the words right on screen and have an agenda ready to go, which you can then show on screen or just have on the screen for you so you can go through it. You can also do this in a Word document and just put it in front of the screen with the people or right next to it. This way you can actually check what you're doing, you can delete things as you get through them, and you can color code it if necessary. Now, if that doesn't work for you, I do recommend having a piece of paper and taping it or propping it up right next to your computer. Now, it's gonna be really obvious if you're looking over to the side to read some notes, so here's a pro tip for you. As you are live streaming, occasionally look off camera. This is what we do when we speak, and it kind of sets people at ease because you're not directly looking at them the entire time. So if you're kind of looking off screen, you can glance down at notes or glance to the side at notes, and it's just going to look like natural conversation. You're not going to look like you're obviously reading some notes. So that's a great way to get around. It's a little trick that I use with my students and with my own videos and live streams, and I highly recommend that you jump into that one as well. Now, to look and feel good on screen is something that's really going to come across in your videos. So make sure you take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort to put some effort into how you look. This doesn't mean you have to get all dressed up. You don't have to do your makeup and your hair and your fancy outfit if you don't want to. but I do recommend that you put a little effort into it. So it will help if you put a little concealer under your eyes to bounce that light back so you don't look quite so tired, especially on computers. It can definitely get those dark circles going for you. So use a little makeup if you want. Make sure you combed your hair, you brushed it out, you look nice, you feel comfortable in what you're wearing, and be aware that what you wear in the classroom is definitely going to be different than what you wear online, because baggy things or sweaters or cardigans will make you look wider on camera. So wear form-fitting clothing, stick to more of a neutral palette. You don't want to go with bright neon colors because it's very loud on screen and it's very distracting for your students. Don't wear bold patterns because, again, that doesn't translate very well to the camera. Wear solid colors and try to go with more of those staple colors because you want to make sure people are paying attention to what you're saying, not what you're wearing. And of course, make sure you're comfortable in it, especially if you're going to be sitting there for a while. And if you need to wear layers, go ahead. You can remove things if you need to, if you've got a cardigan on, or if you need to add a sweater or a wrap, that's totally okay. Have that next to you so that you're ready to go. Bonus pro tip. Speaking of things that you need to have ready to go, always have water right next to you so that you're ready to go. And I do recommend having it on a separate table, or I recommend having it capped so that if you accidentally bump it, it doesn't get all over your technology. Just have it away from the technology. That's just a bonus pro tip for you there. Now, I also want to recommend that you're paying attention to your lighting and your audio. This is going to be the most important thing when it comes to teaching. If your students can't see you and your students can't hear you, they're not going to pay attention to you. So I do recommend making sure that you are using audio that works. So check your computer mic. The built-in mic is fine to use, just make sure it works. If you're using earbuds, make sure that that works and people can easily hear you. And if you've got another microphone, feel free to bring that in as well. In terms of lighting, I do recommend working with natural light. So if it's during the daytime, sit in front of an open window. But we know sometimes the weather doesn't play nice, so make sure you've got an artificial light source ready to go. Now, if you have the ability to get a ring light, go ahead. If you have the ability to get a softbox or an umbrella light, go ahead. These are going to be incredibly helpful to you. But if you don't want to go there just yet, if you're not prepared to make that investment, which isn't that expensive, but if you don't want to do it, what I recommend is you go to your store, look for a white-based light bulb, not yellow, white. White is going to mimic that natural light and not tinge your skin yellow, and that will be able to illuminate you a lot better than a normal light bulb would. So I recommend that you screw this into your lamp, take the lampshade off and put it directly in front of you so that the light is streaming straight at your face, not from an angle where it's going to give you harsh shadows. And if you need more than one, go ahead and set up two. And then make sure they're pointing directly at you so it's nice, even lighting. This will help to illuminate you and allow your students to see you while you are on air. And then when they can see and hear you, they're going to pay a lot more attention to you. Now, I do want to remind you that as you are having a conversation with your students, it's going to be pretty tempting to address the things coming in the comments. So if you have a comment section on your program, there's going to be a lot of things that come in. It can be really tempting to stop mid-sentence and answer another question when you see it come in. But don't do this. If you don't clearly answer your students' questions or clearly finish what you were teaching them, they're going to miss out on part of that. I know it's really tempting. I know it's really hard. So sometimes it's actually beneficial to cover that up with like a Word doc, just put it right over the screen, and then just move it when you need to check it. So finish your sentence, finish your paragraph, finish your statement, then check for new comments. I know they're going to come in fast, but I just want to make sure that you get this done. This is something that everyone struggles with. Even I, a veteran of over a decade of live streaming professionally, sometimes see a comment and I will get myself off track as I was discussing something. So I highly recommend don't look at those comments until you're ready to answer them, and please don't stop in the middle of your sentence to answer something else. It can be distracting, I understand. And if you, of course, have people who are jumping on air, if you can see them, if they can speak to you, you want to make sure that you're finishing what you're saying before that they jump in, and make sure that they're muted at all times. Just remind them of that. And of course, if they jump in, just remind them. You'll get to them in just a second. Now, the last thing I want you to be aware of when it comes to live streaming is that you need to give calls to action. In the classroom, you have their attention. They're sitting there, they are in the same room with you, they're in the same physical space, but here, they're not. So that means to keep them engaged, especially while they're sitting staring at a screen for a lesson, you need to be giving calls to action. Tell them to do things, whether it is writing an answer on a piece of paper or doing something with their hands, raising a hand if they're going to answer something. Give them calls to action. It doesn't even have to be anything big. It could just be be okay. Tap your head twice, tap your shoulders twice, put your hands in your lap and listen to the next section. Something to get their attention, to get them doing something, to move, to do something to engage with them. And obviously it's going to be a little different for older kids and younger kids, but you want to make sure that you are taking the time to give those calls to action both within the lesson and just to get them physically aware that you're still going, you're still working, and they should still be paying attention to what you're doing. Now, I have a ton more tips in the description bar below. In fact, I made a whole playlist for you of helpful things that I teach my entrepreneur students on how to build their businesses through live streams that's going to help you as well. So we talk all about creating a script. We're going to talk about how to get your computer up to the right level. We're going to talk about how to engage people and how to give those calls to action. All those really great things in the playlist below, and I will continue to support you. So if you have questions, if you're an educator jumping into the world of online education and you've got a question, keep in mind, I've done this professionally for many, many years, and I used to be a teacher, so I am 100% here to support you. I know you're all using different programs, you've got a lot going on, there's a lot on your plate, so I am here to help you to make this better. If you have questions at all, please, please, please DM me, email me, reach out to me, leave comments, and I will create as many tutorials for you as physically possible to help you, to help your students as you're jumping into the world of online education and growing what you're doing through live streaming. Thanks so much for joining me. I will see you in the next video as we continue to talk about how you can up your game when it comes to live streaming, both in the educational world and in the business world.